He walked around some trees, and when he came to the clearing before his house, he saw a creature standing there. What is the scariest story you know that is 100% true? 100% true, as it happened to me. It's probably spookier than scary. I'll let you be the judge. Many years ago, before there were cell phones, we had these things called pagers strapped to our hips. Someone would page you with their phone number and you would call them back when you got to a phone. As an on-call technician working in the audio-visual field, my pager would go off all the freaking time. Like most people who used pagers, our clients knew that if you followed up your number with a 911, that would indicate to the technician to stop what they were doing and call right away. Although I was always busy, I rarely if ever got 911s. One afternoon traveling from Orlando to St. Petersburg via Interstate 4, my pager goes off with a number that I don't recognize, followed by the 911. I find the first exit and pull into a little truck, stop looking place outside of Plant City to use the payphone. This takes maybe 3 minutes tops. I walk in, ask for some change and head to the wall where there are 4 payphones to choose from. I pop my quarter in and dial the number displayed on my trusty pager. It rings and rings and rings and rings. I'm thinking to myself, what the F? Who would page me with a 911 and not answer their phone? It's just about then that I notice another ringing sound in addition to the one in my ear. I pull the handset from my ear and 2 phones over on the wall. Another payphone is ringing, but with an incoming call. I hang up the handset and the ringing stops on the other phone. I walk a few paces over, pick up the handset, and look at the phone number printed above the buttons. I look at the number on my pager. I look at the number on the phone. I look at the number on my pager again. I look at the phone again. Except for the 911, they are identical. I kinda lose my breath for a second, and then I make my way over to the girl at the counter and ask if she saw anyone use the payphone. She said I was the only person in the store in the last hour. The whole episode probably took 15 minutes, but man, I was freaked out. The hair on the back of my neck was standing straight up, and I just wanted out of there. I get about 10 miles down the highway and come upon a scene that looked like a bomb went off. 4-car pileup involving a tractor trailer hauling a load of steel that had come loose. State troopers and paramedics just arriving. I pulled over to the side and helped the best I could, but it was all pretty much over once it began. I have no idea why I got that page, or from whom or what, but I'm convinced that if I hadn't, I would not be alive to write this today. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing. A female friend in college disappeared from a party at another university in the city town 25 miles north of our school. She had arrived with another friend who I believe had driven. At some point she split off to play cornhole or something and was later inexplicably gone. Phone calls went to voicemail, police were called, but she was simply missing. About 10 days later she was found by a homeless man who witnessed her crawling up to a bus stop in the city, begging for help. She had broken a leg and an arm, and was in very bad shape. At the quite large party, she had her drink secretly drugged, and was then led off by a group of men into their vehicle. She was taken to an apartment, where she was drugged, repeatedly raped, and locked in a small room in between with a bucket, to use as a bathroom. At one point, after being injected with heroin and raped, she somehow managed to convince one of her captors to allow her to use the actual bathroom to clean herself up. This bathroom had a small window to the outside, and with the shower running, she managed to squeeze out and fell from the 3rd story into a large bush. From there she crawled from the apartment complex to the road and bus stop, where the homeless man saw her and called police. Many cars stopped upon seeing her, making her captives unable to recapture her. 3 men were later arrested for the crime, after surveillance cameras allowed police to locate the apartment which she jumped from. She returned to our university almost 2 years later, graduated, and became a nurse. She was obviously traumatized, never partied again, carried a gun everywhere she could, and somehow moved on with life. It was a terrifying tale none of us ever forgot. She was an 18-year-old freshman when the incident happened. Well, this one was quite dreadful for me, at least. Whilst I was working back in 2006, I was working inside of a multi-story car park. I came down in the lift from the top floor, where I was working at the time. As I got out the lift, there was a woman in her late 40s, I would say, with graying hair and a maroon handbag. We brushed shoulders as I got out the lift. I apologized. She gave me a very blank look. I walked out to go get some food, not thinking at the time much more than that. Although, when I think about it, the lady appeared to look quite sad. I returned with my noodles around 20 to 30 minutes later. At this point I got back, and police were everywhere. The lady had jumped from the top floor. I knew it was her from the handbag laying on the floor. Gosh, if I had stopped and spoke to her, or left for lunch a little later, I may have been able to stop her jumping. I moved into another town. I was surprised by people who looked as they knew me, even though I saw them for the very first time. And everyone around was so rude, despite of all other sources telling how friendly people there were. I was also greeted by, "Oh no, you again," in one place, where I went for the first time. I was looking for a room for rent, and one of the owners told me that he won't rent it to me because my co-tenants saw me following and stalking them. I was like, what the F? Am I doing things and forgetting? Is something wrong with my mental health? Then, I went abroad for 3 months. No such thing was happening there. Everything was normal. I thought, guess it's just a local culture. They do that to get rid of newcomers. Once I returned, I went to a fast food to leave my CV. The guy said, "You were here a month ago, and it hasn't changed. We aren't recruiting." Right, I was on another continent. I couldn't have just bought 2 airplane tickets, spent several days, and just forgetting about it. And my bank account wouldn't forget anyway. That's when I started to understand what's going on. And then one day, I finally saw myself on the CCTV, trying to steal something. Right. Stealing. Following people and stalking, and being disliked, makes sense. There was some thief who looked exactly like me, even had similar hairstyle, which was in fashion around. As of now, I already know of 2 guys who look identically like me. They say everybody has 7 doppelgangers, and it seems like you're very good at finding them. But seriously, I have yet to find someone who looks like me, and I've seen doppelgangers of almost everyone I know. I'm curious to see someone like me. I found one of mine at a relatively local bar. He and I both just stared at each other for a minute, as if we were trying to determine whether the glass we were looking through was a mirror, even though we weren't wearing anything close to the same clothing. Haven't seen him since. Very weird experience. For those of you that don't know, please allow me to tell you the story of the bottle gas tragedy, which is legitimately terrifying. In 1984, Bothell, India existed a chemical plant responsible for pesticide production. With regulations being as poor as they were in the time and place, the plant was built above the slums of the city with faulty equipment. Eventually, this all came to a head on December 2nd to 3rd, 1981. The faulty equipment, which regularly gave false readings, foretold of a leak that nobody took seriously. The chemical, which was denser than air, leaked from the factory to the slums down below and began to poison the townspeople. For hours the gas went on to kill at least 16,000 people in the dead of night, as those numbers are considered conservative, and maybe even part of one of the largest cover-ups in history, as well as injuring an additional 500,000. The company didn't even alert anyone for at least a few hours, and failed to let any medical professionals know about the possible dangers of what they were producing beforehand. As the chemical was denser than air, and thus closer to the ground, children were the first to go. It also turns out a simple mouth covering would have given everyone the opportunity to escape, had they been warned to do so by the company, but they did not. Kinda late, but here's my story anyway. I live with my mother, just the 2 of us in a rather large house. One night, I woke up at 3 AM because I could hear someone sobbing outside my room. Of course I knew something was wrong, but I stayed quiet and kept listening. It was my mother. She was saying, "Please go away," very softly and quietly while crying. She didn't want to wake me up, and shit got real. When I heard male voices, it was a home invasion. I had to decide within seconds to go outside my room and confront the robbers, which is clearly a bad decision if you run armed, or escape through the window and ask for help. The later meant that I had to leave my mother on her own, but I believe I made the right choice by seeking help from my neighbors. As soon as I got out, one of the guys who was waiting outside with their car spotted me, so he called his companions and drove off as fast as they could, because I had already alerted my neighbors and the police. Even though nothing happened to my mom, I still feel terrible, and the thought of leaving my mother on her own really haunts me. But I'm certain it would have been worse if I decided to leave my room and confront them. So my dad is super skeptical about anything paranormal. He doesn't believe in ghosts or demons or anything like that. Very rational, logical person. Not afraid of much. He grew up in the countryside of Cuba. He and his family were farmers. One afternoon he was out doing something in the fields, and it was getting dark as he walked back. When he got closer to home, it was pretty much complete darkness minus the moonlight, so he could make out enough to get through. Plus, he was very familiar with the land, so he was fine. Suddenly he said he smelled a very strong stench of rotting meat. He walked around some trees, and when he came to the clearing before his house, he saw a creature standing there. He described it as a horse with no head, no open fleshy wound or anything. It was smooth and had fur on it, but no head. And it was standing, but as he walked around it to take a better look, he said it wasn't breathing. He said it filled him with so much fear and dread that he took off running. He had goosebumps as he was telling me the story. Many other family members witnessed some strange things on that land, but this one always shook me the most, because my father doesn't believe in these things and he sure as hell doesn't joke about them. And it just sounds creepy as hell. About 4 years ago, I was driving my friend home from an out-of-state karate tournament through the back roads of North Carolina. I mean absolutely nothing but farmland and woods for miles. It was 2 AM, but it was a bright moon, so you could still see. I turned a corner, and a car pulled onto the road behind me, no big deal. But then the car raced up to my bumper, and stayed on my ass for a couple miles. I figured they would pass me, but they never did. I wanted to go into law enforcement at the time, and my friend was a country girl, so we were both putting on brave faces, but honestly, both of us were terrified. I began taking turns and speeding 70 and 80 miles per hour on cracked concrete roads, hoping I didn't hit a deer, and the car behind me never let off and never passed me. We were scared, but time was very real to us, and this guy had been following us so closely and for so long that my nerves began to give out. We considered calling the cops, but we were so far out in an unfamiliar area, we had no idea if we could even reach a 911 dispatcher. After 45 minutes of literally speeding for our lives, we began to get close to her house, and I started theorizing what to do when this lunatic pulls into her very long, dark, woodsy driveway behind us. I told my friend I have an ice pick in the glove box and a pocket knife in my purse. We pull up to the last stop sign before her driveway, where the road also splits into 2 lanes, one going to my friend's house, and one leading towards our hometown. The psycho car pulls into the turn lane beside me, heading towards town. As they slowly pulled up beside me, I really and truly thought I was about to get murdered. Then I noticed the writing on the car. It was a county sheriff's deputy. That deputy. Edit. If anyone has a good theory on why that cop did this, I'd appreciate it. I can't imagine for the life of me what his reason was besides being a fucking sociopath. I stumbled across a cult. This was 2 or 3 years ago. My family at the time loved taking cruises in our city, and especially the beach. When we would attend the beach, we would cruise for hours until it would be dark. This one time we went, we were a little late than usual, and it was getting dark. So we decided to head back home on the main street. The way this beach is set up is where you can drive on the beach or on the road. The road was higher than the beach though, if that makes sense. Basically from the road, you can see the beach at the bottom. Anywho, this beach isn't necessarily isolated, but it's not packed, because there are better/more popular beaches where I live. So of course since it's nighttime, the beach is empty with a few people like fishermen. But that was it. A good 10 minutes down the road go by, and I noticed something on the beach. I'm on the passenger side and the beach was on my side, so I had a good view. But I saw light, but not like a normal bonfire or flashlight. They were sticks planted on the beach on fire in a specific order. Of course I was interested seeing what they were doing. As we got closer however, the people on the beach were very odd. They appeared to be wearing gowns of some kind, but I couldn't tell for sure. But once I saw a good view, what they were doing, I saw the satanic symbol built by the sticks on fire and them holding their arms up also in a certain position. My family and I were shocked, and despite being far away from them, it was still frightening to just see that. My father immediately stepped on the gas pedal to get away from them as far as possible. To this day, I still don't know what kind of cult they are, and I regret not calling 911 to let them investigate them. I also think to myself, what if we were driving on the beach instead of the road? We would have definitely bumped into them, and God knows what would have happened. Ever since then, my family and I never gone to that beach again and just go to the more popular ones within our city. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you on the next video.